Oh boy, I'm in trouble for this one. Trigger warning. I will be using the R word and other words that you may find inappropriate, not to insult or upset anyone, but for the sake of clarity and because I don't feel the need to constantly dance around them. First off, I'll admit that Xanderhal has done some things that I can't really defend, such as publicly speculating over whether certain people, specifically reactionary types, have an illness or not. I do think that is kind of, as the common folks say, yikes. But the point of this video isn't to judge or examine his every offense. Instead, I want to look at the broader controversy that his actions have sparked in leftist spaces, specifically the colloquial use of words that have been deemed as off-limit slurs. One thing I do wish to critique first is his utilitarian argument for the use of edgy words like triggered or retard. He's not wrong to suggest that using the language of reactionaries can be effective in attracting them to your content and potentially changing their opinions. The problem is that it seems to suggest that there is only a very special and narrow context in which you are allowed to use these words, that is for the purpose of outreach. But if these terms are truly problematic, then there should be no exception for their use in the dirtbag left. However, if we argue that these words are not inherently or universally problematic, then there is no need to justify them based on utility. Now, I don't know Xanderhal's psychology, but I'm going to guess that the main reason he sometimes uses words like retard and triggered is not because they attract reactionaries. I think it's because, like with myself and the general population, those words are a natural part of his vocabulary and they serve an expressive function. Note, he has said that he no longer uses the word retard not because it's offensive, but because he personally doesn't like the word. But anyway, I think that the utilitarian argument is not really what this is about. It's about the broader question of basic human expression and being able to use the words we grew up with and whether or not we should suppress them for the sake of other people's feelings and the renewed wave of objections to it. That is what I will be addressing. So let's tackle what I consider the most substantial objection first, which is the reality that some people genuinely feel hurt by these words. How can you possibly argue that their feelings are invalid? How can you possibly argue that it's okay to do something that hurts another person? We live in a general atmosphere, thanks primarily to late-stage feminism and the popularization of safe spaces, where the tide favors the one who claims to be hurt by something over the one who claims to be okay with that thing. So, trying to defend something that I consider neutral is interpreted as invalidating another person's pain. It's an uphill battle, but one that still needs careful examination. As ContraPoints pointed out in her video Canceling, just because something hurts someone does not make that thing automatically bad. As she explains, a simple conversation about certain fetishes can be hurtful for someone who has been abused, but that doesn't mean the conversation can't or shouldn't happen. Natalie may not agree with my views on this subject, but she did make this argument and I'm going to use it. So there has to be more to this argument than simply, it hurts me. It needs to be pointed out here that not all neurodivergent or mentally ill people are hurt by these edgy words. Many enjoy using them, myself included. One has to question whether those who are anti-slur are truly representing an entire marginalized group, or are they rather a small subset of people who are more woke. On a side note, words like asshole, bitch, piece of shit, etc. are used solely to hurt people all the time. But are we about to ban all insults? I don't think so. But the question now becomes whether the word retard is, perhaps, somehow more inherently ableist. Let's look at some other objections. In general, the word retard is considered a slur because it literally and historically means someone who is neurodivergent, and so using it derogatorily equates the neurodivergence to something negative. I can understand this, but if we are going to use this logic, that would mean we would have to get rid of many other commonly used words, such as crazy, dumb, and lame, all having their roots in describing forms of disability. Regardless, I know a lot of people out there listening are very ready and willing to get rid of all these other words. I know this because I've talked to them, and also because if you Google these words, you get articles explaining why we should remove them from our vocabulary. Slippery slope is a fallacy, but in this case, these are the sentiments looming on the horizon. Currently, you don't hear the relatively woke getting upset over someone using crazy, dumb, lame, stupid, idiot, or moron, even though these words have probably done a lot more emotional harm than retard, because they know it will make them sound unreasonable. Despite the fact that most people still find that viewpoint unreasonable, I am very worried about this slippery slope. I don't want to see language constricted like this. I don't want to see basic human expression made more difficult and restrained. If you want to get rid of all these words, then I don't know how at this moment I can express how backwards that would be. I can only make a few arguments. But a lot of folks upset about the word retard are not upset about words like stupid. I read a whole bunch of comments on a popular video lamenting the fact that retard is being used as a synonym for stupid. But what is stupid? How does stupid not describe something that is uncontrollable? Does it not describe something that is inherent about a person's intelligence? Does it not describe low IQ, a limited ability to use logic, which is something you would be born with? A person certainly doesn't choose to be stupid. I don't understand how you can attack the word retarded and not see the problem with calling someone stupid. Stupid is arguably worse. Either you believe neurodivergent people are not stupid because stupid is inherently bad, or you accept stupid or low intelligence as just as valid and deserving of the same care. Mind you, I'm not trying to imply we should get rid of the word stupid. I'm just saying there's an inconsistency. So, what about all those times retard was actually used to bully an autistic? Well, yes, using any of the words I mentioned above to bully an autistic person would be bad, but you see, it's less to do with the words themselves and more to do with the context. It's horrible to insult a child who is, say, struggling to understand math. Even if you use the word stupid, or slow, or half-wit, that is a form of bullying. Yet, all those words have a life outside this specific context. I've personally been hurt by the use of lame and ugly, but I still recognize that those words and their usages transcend my personal experiences with them, and I don't intend to eliminate them from the common vernacular. Furthermore, I wouldn't use retard against an autistic in reference to their behavior. I wouldn't use dumb against a mute person in reference to their absent speech, and I wouldn't use lame against a person in a wheelchair. Unless, of course, they said something really super lame. Retard and those other words have evolved into a broader usage, and it's not always used to bully people who are neurodivergent. It can be used to express frustration over an event. When someone says, "that's retarded," they don't refer to literal retardation. Words evolve and become divorced from their original meanings. You can't just look at the technical side of a word and deduce that it is inherently problematic. It depends on the context, meaning, and motive. Nearing the end of this, I'd like to reiterate that this isn't about a single word, but about the broader implications of the censorship of this word. It's about whether those who suffer from certain sensitivities have the right to restrict the language and general creativity of those who do not suffer from those same conditions and trauma. I said creativity because this question has implications in other spaces that are personal to me, namely fiction writing and fandom. I'll have to leave that analysis for another video though. But lastly, my personal biased take. I hate to see people stripped of avenues of expression, whether it's their vocabulary, their art, their fiction, the gifts they use, the memes they share, the slang they use, the jokes they make, and so on. I'm not here to argue that everything under the sun is appropriate, but in any instance where neutrality and innocence can be applied, it should be. I think I've said enough. That's all, folks. If you disagree, you can chew me out in the comments.